As you know from last week's video, we're having to move. For us, that means going through a whole lot of commercial listings, trying to find a place that suits us for the size, the location, and then negotiating with real estate agents and landlords about the lease terms. Residential tenants go through a very similar process, but with even less room to negotiate on price and the lease terms, like how long you might be able to live there. It's a really long and involved process, and it can be really overwhelming, particularly when it's a forced move like an eviction. Here's Amity, who's recently been through this with her family.
Hey, I'm Amo and this is Buster. And recently we got evicted because our landlord decided to sell our house. And we were pretty devastated because we'd lived there for a really long time. And 6 years. And we'd invested a lot in our local community and especially Buster's school. So we were pretty sad about having to move. My first tip would be that if you're an anxious person like me, set some limits on how many times a day you look at the real estate app or whatever platform you're using to find a house, because you also need some sleep. And I find it really helpful to have a pretty clear idea of like what are the things that you know you need in a house and what are the things that you want but you know you're willing to live without.
And I would recommend making a list of things you want a new house to have and then looking at them in your inspection to make sure your house has almost everything you want.
Because you're not going to find anything perfect. I also recommend looking at Rent Tracker to see what the median rent has been for houses in your area, in the size of house you're looking for, because that can be useful just to get a sense of what you're in for rent-wise. I would also look at the property history online. You know, there's some houses where it was like, it's been rented out every year for the last 6 years. Why haven't the tenants stayed longer than a year ever? And that was sort of a red flag for me. And you sort of have to be aware to not necessarily trust the ads as well. Like there are some things where, like some houses we looked at, they showed a photo of a backyard and then you'd get there and be like, oh, they've built a fence across there and there's now a house where the backyard used to be. So you have to be pretty ready to be disappointed when you turn up for the actual inspection. Other things I was looking out for were like sometimes an add or save bill's included, and that often means that it's not metered separately, which can sometimes mean like maybe the landlord lives out the back, or it could just be someone else, but you know, it's worth thinking about whether or not you want your landlord on your doorstep on Sunday mornings. The application process can be quite daunting. There's usually a lot of documentation required for an application. A lot of real estate agents will ask for a tenancy reference, an employment reference, and a character reference. They'll also ask, obviously, for proof of income. Some even ask for bank statements. It's really worth having all of that documentation ready quite early, because if you go to an inspection where there's 40 people and you want to apply for the house, I think it's worth making sure your application is one of the first ones that lands on their desk. If you've got pets, a lot of landlords in New South Wales sadly will just put a blanket ban on pets. We got our previous landlord to write a reference for our cat to help with our application process. And we also wrote a cover letter sort of introducing us as a family. We would say things like, oh, we like your property because this, that and the other, kind of like you would with a job application.
When you're moving, make sure you know your rights. Call up your local Tenants Advice and Advocacy service to check on any issues you might have about tenancy law at this time, or go to tenants.org.au for fact sheets, sample letters and other information to make sure that you know what you can expect when you're moving and when you're moving into a new home.